I'm Doug Wilkerson with Central Christian Center here in Joplin, and also with Saturday Night Live Life Recovery Ministry, also here at the church here in Joplin. Welcome you and thank you for being here with us today. Hopefully I will finish up part 3, the last part of my topic that I've gone over. This is my third, so I've gone over it twice, and the title of my encouraging word from Doug today is How to Accept Yourself, Your Life, and Reality, part 3. And as I've said the other parts, again, we're talking about reality. We're talking about accepting ourselves and our life. And I've talked to a few different folks, and they've messaged me, and they're working on getting a handle on these things. And it's hard to get a handle on something that you don't even really realize it's even there. And so I say congratulations to you that are starting to open up and realize these are some things that's been affecting you that you may have not even been aware of. Now, there may be others of you that are far on down the line here, and great, that's awesome. So, but as Moses went through the desert, he had to kind of go at a pace that the majority of the folks were able to travel without falling out. And so, yes, and there's always going to be some that go way out in front. There's going to be some that lag behind. And, if you do those things, I understand that can happen. But when you do those things, you're kind of on your own. And so, anyway, I want to start off by saying we're talking about, I've said kind of it's about reality. And so the main points, I'm just going to touch on a few main things here before I get back into the list. And that is that you have to be aware, because you can't fix something you're not aware of. You have to accept what you're aware of, because oftentimes when we become aware, we just realize we're aware of it, and we didn't realize it was even there, or that other people could see it, or that's the way it was. And oftentimes that's when it really gets hard, right there, when we become aware. We don't want to accept it, but to be able to deal with it, we have to accept it. So the first step is become aware. Then the next step is to accept what you're aware of. You don't have to like it. You have to accept it to be able to, one verbiage is to be able to change it or to affect it. Okay? And do you have to change everything? Well, no. If it's beneficial to you, if it's in your best interest, if it's healthy, then of course you don't have to change it. You adapt it and say, yes, this is part of me. Okay, all right. But that's not normally the problem. It's problems of things that's a part of you that you don't realize that you don't want to be a part of you. They're not lined up with truth. They're lined up with a distortion or a lie or a false belief. So the third step is, first one is be aware. Second is to accept. You don't have to like it, but you do have to accept it. Number 3, then you have to deal with it or change it. Find ways to affect it. Better forms of coping if it's things that you can't change. And of course, Viktor Frankl says when you're in a situation that you can't change, then you have to change yourself. Okay, which is what he found out in the Nazi death camp, Auschwitz, and several others that he was in. So, Man's Search for Meaning, if you're interested in that book, it's a really great book, good lessons. So, reality, then if you do these things, then you're starting to either be in or get in reality. And then when you're in reality, then what are you going to do? It can be challenging, but it's a whole lot healthier. And when you do that, then you're able to make healthy choices to bring you into a healthier, happier life long term. It's hard in the beginning, okay? It's tough, but it's healthy long term. You'll have a healthier, better life. And when you're in automatic mode in reality, then it just starts happening automatically. You make those healthy choices, just like you made unhealthy choices automatically. You'll start making healthy choices automatically. But it takes some time to switch over from being focused and focused in close on where you want to go. And after you start to get that internalized, and it goes from your conscious thinking into your unconscious or non-conscious, then it will begin to happen automatically. And that's what you want, okay? So one more quote from William James, father of American psychology. He said this: acceptance of what has happened is the first step to overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. Okay? Acceptance of what has happened is the first step to overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. Because you can't deal with it until you accept it. Okay? If you deny it, if you pretend it's not there, you avoid it, you live in fantasy land or a non-reality, then there's no way to deal with reality if you're not in reality. I've said that so many different ways and so many different times. So that's a little bit of a review. Okay, you can look at the others. I said some of that, and maybe not all of that, but some of that before. So we have 11 points that we've been going over. I think I got down to, I did 0.5 last week. We got 11 points, 11 ways to cope with reality, especially the parts of reality you don't like. That's primarily what we're talking about, because, well, you like what you like. You don't have to change that, of course, unless you like things that are unhealthy, and then you've come to a conclusion that you may have to change that, or it's probably in your best interest to change that. That's another one struggle. We're not going to talk about that today. And the rest of this is and how you can create or change to be in the reality that you do like. That's where we want to go. Because if you feel stuck, overwhelmed, if you feel like you're on that hamster wheel and you're just going round and round and round, always seem to be doing the same thing. In fact, I talked with a person today, said it just seems like I have been going through this cycle, and I get right back to that place. They didn't say it just like this, but I get right back to that place I don't want to be. We can call it sick place, upset place, distorted place, unhealthy place, and so what we have to do is we have to break that cycle of thinking and take some new action and create some new habits. All right, that's what we're talking about. All right, so I am going to see if I can flip over and share my screen with you. How about that? There we go. All right, you got my screen, and I'm going to see if I can give you kind of review these topics here, and that's there we are. Accept yourself, which we've talked about, which is really so important. Accepting yourself. It's crucial to accept yourself. It's accepting yourself is that acceptance is actually loving yourself, because the scripture said out of Matthew 22:39, it said, love thy neighbor as thyself. To properly love our neighbor, we have to be able to love ourselves. And that, as Jordan Peterson said in his book, he said, you really need to treat yourself like you would treat somebody you really care for, or you're in charge to actually care for them. And so you need to take care of yourself like it's an important job. Okay. Number two, accept acknowledge your reality. We have to begin to see things, see reality instead of our false belief, our fantasy, our non-reality, our pretend state, or whatever we want. We talked about that in pretty big detail. So we have to accept the state of things not as we want them to be, but we have to accept them the way that they're are supposed to be, the way they should be. And I know that's challenging, but the fact of it is, if you really ask yourself the question, what is the truth, what is real, and listen inside, you'll get some of that. I know that's hard in the beginning, particularly if you've been twisted up a lot, or lied to a lot, or abused, or have other mental emotional traumas. I know that's challenging, but one way to kind of judge that, to find the truth, is to recognize that if it's provable, if it's testable, if it's repeatable, okay, that's one level of knowing there. To begin to help you down that. Then another is to be confirmed by others that you trust, that you can rely on, a trusted source that would kind of confirm that, to help you, to guide you into that truth. And information or documents, for instance, like the scriptures, except oftentimes we can take, I know this is going to sound terrible, but sometimes a lot of folks use scriptures against themselves, or people have used scriptures against them and twisted them and distorted them. And so oftentimes you need healthy individuals to help guide you through some of these things, to not make you believe what they believe, but help you to empower you to be able to find that true path of truth, which will witness with you, because he said he'd lead you and guide you into all truth. I'm sorry. I kind of got stuck there, but the reality is that we need to become coherent mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And when we're in that place, when we're in alignment, when we're in reality, or as best we can, and if we're trying, God is help there with us, and because God is in reality, he'll try to bring you out of your distortions, lies, and fantasies. But now he is in reality. Okay. Number 3, practice radical honesty, because we need to be honest to ourselves. Okay. Denying the current reality, especially a bad one, is not going to get you where you want to go. In fact, it will make things worse. Okay, and I think you probably know that you'll make things worse. And so if we'll go ahead, instead of trying to avoid the bad stuff, we go ahead and deal with the bad stuff, because then when we deal with the bad stuff, then we can get to the good stuff. Okay, because if you run from the bad stuff, you're running from the good stuff too. So we have to oftentimes deal with the bad stuff, work through the bad stuff. And then you have to practice being there. Okay, and I know it takes some emotional endurance to be there, but we have to be there. And I'm talking way more than I wanted to talk about. I want to go ahead and say this scripture while I'm on this. That's John 8:32. It says, "And you shall know the truth." God wants you to know the truth. Oftentimes we may have so many things clouded up in our head and in our heart that it's hard. But if we go ahead and search and ask, because he said, if you seek, you will find. You will come to that truth. Even if you don't get all the way to the truth where you want to be right now, if you're seeking, you're better off. You're better off than you were when you were in an accepted non-reality or fantasy. Okay, you're moving in the right direction, and that's good. Okay. Number 4, identify your part you played. We need to understand the part that we played, the good parts and the bad parts. We need to recognize that. We need to be aware of all of it, not just the bad parts, but we need to recognize the good parts too. And in doing that, that will help us to become aware of where we need to go. Particularly if we make a mistake, then we can alter that mistake by making a new choice, a healthy choice. That now you say, well, what if it's not the way what I should do? Well, then you'll know that's not what you should do. So you make another choice. Okay. I think I said last week talking about the CEOs, and I didn't communicate it well, but I want to take another stab at it. I learned that the most successful CEOs in America are 51% of their decisions are correct. And what that meant is that they make a lot of decisions that are incorrect, but then they correct it and they get back on the right course. Because when you don't make any decision, the problem continues to build until it blows up. And then the situation dictates what you do after that, because then you're in crisis mode. And then you pick up everything, you don't make any changes, and then you do the whole thing over if you're there. If not, you're fired or you're bankrupt. So the idea here is you just have to make decisions. Yes, and you will make mistakes. But if you keep making choices, recalibrate, adjust, learn, and grow. But if you don't make any decisions, then you actually will implode in life or in business. Okay, number 5, admit your mistakes. So we have to admit our mistakes. Remember that you can't fix anything that you don't admit to, that you don't recognize, that you don't accept. Okay, you can't fix it, and that becomes a problem. And so what we have to do is to really, when it comes down to it, we have to recognize our failures. We have to know that we make mistakes. And if you're going to go through life, if you're going to try to do anything, you're going to make mistakes. But recognize them, admit them. You admire people that will admit their mistakes. People will admire you when you admit your mistakes. We don't like people that make mistakes and then blames others or say they don't make any. So admit our mistakes, learn from those situations, because they are learning opportunities, and really come to the place that helps us to navigate through life is to decide what it is that we really, really, really want. Okay, where we want to go, and then we have to line our thinking, our feeling, and our actions up with that. Okay. All right. So that takes us to number 5. And yeah, did that. All right. So what we're going to talk about now, we're going to talk about number 6. And it says, own your own outcome. Own your outcome. All right. So I learned many years ago that I needed to take responsibility for what was going on in my life. Anything that intersects with my life, I have some degree of responsibility. I know that doesn't sound fair, okay? Because why am I responsible for something that I didn't do? Well, oftentimes it's a way of really managing things in your own self, your emotions. I would say, hey, I'm responsible. I may have not did it, but I'm responsible for it. Okay. And so, and go ahead and you address it, and to a greater or lesser degree, we have to take responsibility for all those things that intersect with our life. To some degree, we have responsibility in it. Now, we don't have responsibility for everything, but that part, okay, we need to recognize and we need to deal with, okay? And as we do that, we'll recognize more and more of our reality, our life, okay? We will We'll recognize how to accept our life and be more okay with it. So owning your own outcome can help you get better, okay? And when you see failure, you need to recognize when you see failure, don't run from it. You need to recognize it because you need to learn from it. It's a learning opportunity, okay? Number 7. Number 7 is don't let fear get in your way, okay? Don't let fear get in your way. Don't let fear, especially the fear of what other people are going to think about you. We have this thing, well, what are people going to think about me? What do people want to think about me? And yes, there are societal norms of things that we need to consider, but the fact of it is to make what other people think about you as your number one primary thought. That means they then are in control of your life and focusing on you. Okay, you need not let your fears, and that's just one of them. We don't want to let fears run our life. We need to look at them. We need to recognize them. We need then to deal with them. Okay, Scripture, 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a soundness of mind." Okay. Oftentimes we hear this statement, spirit of fear. Oftentimes we get overwhelmed, and it's a strange thing. Why is it that we have more belief in fear than we do in God's power, in God's love, in God's soundness of mind? It's something to think about. I wonder the reason why it's easier to let fear overcome us is maybe because we practice fear more than we have love and power and soundness of mind. Just a thought. So what is controlling you? Is it the inside or is it the outside? Is it fear of everything? And we'll be talking more about that here in a moment. But there is a lot of uncertainty. We'll be talking about that. But the fact of it is, if we can be controlled from the inside, if we have that self-assurance, if we have that self-love, self-worth, then we can affect everything outside of us. And this world needs to be affected with some good spirit, good love out there. Okay. Number 8. Count on your competencies. Those things that you can do good, those things that you're good at, you're competent at, okay? And it's real easy to look at all the negative things and point out the bad things, our insecurities, our problems, those things we can't do, and it's real easy to discount the things that we're good at. I know even myself, I have looked at the things I could do, and I figured, well, if I can do it, it's easy, and everybody can do it. But I have all these other things that I don't have, and oftentimes we get so focused on our inabilities that we lose or we don't use the things that we're good at, and those things that we're good at. Very possibly God has given those talents and strengths to us, and that we need to pay attention to them and utilize them instead of discounting them. One of the things that we need to do is to practice the gratitude exercise, and that is that we are grateful for what we do have, that we're thankful for what we do have, what God has given us. Oftentimes we think about all the stuff we don't have and the things that we've done wrong and the mistakes, and we're more conscious of it than what we do have. And that's the reason why we have to take time to think about all the good things, the things that we care about, things that we're concerned about, things that people that has loved us, people that we love, and that we concentrate that gratefulness, that love in our heart. And so that we are to have that empowerment. If we don't focus on that, we lose that. We actually, by thinking all this other stuff, it drains us. So what we need to do is empower ourselves with that little exercise. There's other things you can do too, but that's one of them. Think about 2, 3, 5 things that you're grateful for every day, whether it's in the morning or at night. Just think about it. Practice it. It will affect you. I got some stories I could talk about, but I think I'm going longer than I thought, so we'll go on. So, number 9, let go of your biases. Recognize your false beliefs, those things that you are biased against. Okay, we are oftentimes we live in the state of being biased, and we're not even aware of it. We because it's been there for so long. It's just maybe we grew up with it. We were taught certain things, and particularly when you're taught things when you're young, that's all you know. So that's what you believe, But the fact of it is, not all that was bad, but some of it could be. So we need to let go of those things that actually negatively affects us, that distorts our view of reality. And our biases actually blind us from almost all reality. We don't see it the way that it is. We see it the way that we're thinking, or our perception. And our perception may be distorted. Okay? And you can't ignore or close your eyes. Okay, you can, but it's not in your best interest. But if you do, then it won't make things better. It won't make things better. Sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich doesn't make that reality change. I mean, if you're about to get ran over by a truck and you stick your head in the sand, that doesn't change. That doesn't make the truck disappear. Okay, so instead, we need to learn to accept our biases and learn how to deal with them and to begin to change our life, okay? Change our thought life and our emotional life, our heart. Number 10, accept that struggles will always be a part of reality. That's a big one. That's a big one, okay? This is a big one. And so struggles will always be a reality, and this is kind of a tough place for a lot of people, because there's a part of us because maybe as kids being raised on fairy tales, because everything always works out, everything's good, and we want to believe for everything will work out, and we need to look at things in a positive way, but you must look at things in a realistic way, not necessarily just in a pessimistic way, okay? And so as recognizing that struggles is always going to be a part of life, don't shy away from challenges, okay? Oftentimes, if we think that it's supposed to be a rose-petaled path and we see a challenge, then we avoid the challenge. And if you avoid the challenge, which I know, part of our humanness, of our survival mechanism, is to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And if it's not pleasant, then in our survival mechanism, our amygdala will tell us that we need to avoid that. Okay, but if you avoid all challenges, then you don't grow, you don't develop. You don't have a life. You will virtually, you may survive, you may live, but it will be a small life. And you can have that if that's what you choose. And I'm not telling you what you have to do. I'm just giving you information. Okay. And it's your choice whether you choose to act upon it. So don't shy away from challenges. But here, listen to this. But rather wade right into the struggles or the challenges and get comfortable with operating in that uncomfortable place, out of our comfort zone. Because see, if we stay in our comfort zone, then we never grow, we never develop. Okay, so I like that terminology, wade right into it, because sometimes and when you wade into stuff, you don't know what's in there. I remember when I was a 11, 12, 13-year-old, we used to cut cattails for a fella where I lived, and when you wade into that water, you didn't know exactly what was in that water because there could be snakes, and you tried to make noise to scare them away, and sometimes I actually got in the water, chest high to get those cattails, and that that's, I don't know, for some reason when I think of wading into things, it's kind of what I think about. Actually wading into uncertainty. But to get the reward, I had to go in and wade into those places, and we'd get them and, made money. That's what I was there for. So struggles are a way of life. They just are a way of life. It's part of life, okay? And we have to learn to get comfortable with dealing with struggles, dealing with problems, okay? Instead of getting overwhelmed and either checking out, avoiding, hiding, feigning, or fighting, okay, exploding, we have to go ahead and we have to get comfortable with it and deal with it instead of letting it manage us, okay? And you never know, okay? You never know. Sometimes the most challenging things can hold the greatest rewards, opportunities, successes. That's where they're at, okay? Einstein said this: in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Somebody gave that to me many years ago with stone with that carved into it. I don't know how many years I've had it, maybe 20 or more. So anyway, I like that. And I not only say that the opportunities lie there, but I call them golden opportunities, because they really are. They may not feel golden, they may not look golden, but they are golden if we go ahead and we step into them and we find a way to wrap our physical or emotional arms around them, and then come to the place that we're able to deal with it. Okay. In the Tools book, which is I found to be a very good book. It's called the Tools book, and that's Phil Stotts and Barry Michaels. See, we got one more. They wrote this book, and they have something that they put in this book, which they call the 3 rules of the universe, and that is this. And I think these are really good. They may be, for some of you, they may be hard to swallow, but listen to them. Number 1 is life is painful. Haven't you found that life is painful? There's pain in life. Almost in any effort we do, it's normally painful, and there's pain in life. So there's pain there. We accept that. That's part of life, so we deal with it. Okay. Now there can be places of excessive pain. I'm not talking about that here. We're talking about trying to get into reality. Just because there's pain doesn't mean that that's not important. Okay, inappropriate. Okay, yes, and there are inappropriate. Okay. Number 2, life has uncertainties in it. Okay. Life has uncertainties. Uncertainty. because it is uncertain. Okay, and that scares us. And one thing that we humans really want is we want certainty, we want safety, we want security. And yes, we're designed that way. But the fact of it is, in life, there is uncertainty. Okay, we have to deal with that. Number 3, life requires ceaseless effort. To be able to make our way through life, it does require effort. I think these are pretty common sense, okay? So, Joseph Campbell said this. He said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. The cave, this is Joseph Campbell, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Jesus said that in me, now in Jesus, okay, he says, in me, you may have peace. In Jesus, you'll have peace. I know I'm belaboring that, but I'm doing that for a purpose. So in Jesus, you'll have peace. And in the world, you'll have tribulations. Some translation says many tribulations. Some say much tribulation, because that's the world, right? That's what we just talked about in those 3 rules of the universe. Okay? But be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. That's John 16:33. He has overcome the world. Number 11, make a plan to reach your goals. You have to create a mental and emotional heart pathway. Okay? A healthy mental and heart pathway. Oftentimes we have pathways that we just have found our way, and sometimes it's the path of least resistance, and that's part of that survival mechanism. But to do more than survive, to thrive, we have to oftentimes, as they say, we have to swim upstream. We have to wade through the discomfort. Right? We have to work through the problems, learn, grow, expand. Okay, and so as we do that, we have to create new mental pathways, mentally and emotionally, in our heart. Hebrews 5:8 says that, this is speaking about Jesus, says, though he were a son, he learned obedience by the things he suffered. Okay, Jesus suffered. Even though he was a son, he learned obedience by the things he suffered. And if Jesus suffered, well, then that means we may have some challenges too. Doesn't that sound about right? Okay, and it's not to make us suffer, but he has given us peace because he has overcome. And if you overcome something, that means you had to deal with something. Okay, and so he has dealt with it, and he has overcome, and he wants to give us peace. But we have to be willing to step into it and deal with it, because as Jesus suffered, okay, and he was flawless, okay, he's sinless, actually sinless. So what we have to do is we need to make a plan to reach our goals. And one of the plans is that we have to go through this discomfort. We have to go through the problems. Mark 11:24 says this, and he says that what things soever you desire when you pray. When I think about what things I should desire, I see that as a heart issue. Now, some of the other interpretations basically kind of make it sound like a mental operation, but I don't know, that I just, we need to have our thinking, our brain, and our heart synchronized. And you can look this up, but there's been, in the last several years, they have discovered that you have brain neurons in your heart. Okay, I think there's like 40 million brain neurons in your heart. And it says that you can sense, feel, learn, and remember in those neurons in your heart. Now, I don't understand all of this. I don't understand the brain. Okay, I'm better than I used to be, but not as good as I hopefully will be. Okay, but your heart works, and oftentimes we talk about things in our gut, and they said that we have somewhere between 100 million and 500 million neurons in our gut region. Okay, and they all work in conjunction with each other, and our heart is a powerful, powerful tool, not just to pump blood, but also to help regulate our entire system, because it creates 60% more electromagnetic energy than our brain does. And there's research along that line, and I've talked about that before. One study is the Heart Math Institute talks about that, and some of the instruments that they've used to regulate that. And I think I'm going to not go any further in that. But one tool that helps a lot of people, and this many different modalities use this. One particular one I pulled off, which is it has the three elements, but it says it's the 3 C's of cognitive therapy, and that is to catch it, check it, and change it. Almost done. But catch it, check it, and change it. And if you do that, there we go. I want to switch it around. If we're able to catch our thoughts that we're thinking, that maybe some emotions have maybe stirred up and we're thinking now, if we can catch it, okay, then we can check it. That means that you reflect on it. You see if it's true, if it's not true, if it's rational, if it's irrational, if it's a fantasy, or if it's not. Okay, and so we check it. Okay, catch it, check it, and then you change it, which is very similar to some of the things I've talked about today. But it's saying the same thing, maybe in a few different words. So hopefully today that was helpful and put together some things for you. I appreciate you listening. I know I went a little longer than I had planned, but I just want to say, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and give you his peace until we see each other again. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. Okay, and if you do that, I believe you'll have a better, positive influence on those around you. Make healthy choices.